Greetings from Washington, D.C. Good morning to those of you who are watching in Asia, and good afternoon and good evening to those of you who are watching in the Eastern Pacific here in the United States. I look forward to the time that we can get together in person, and we're not doing these conferences by video and Zoom, but in the meantime, I'm grateful for the technology that allows us to gather and talk about the important issues that are on the agenda for this dialogue. I want to compliment the conference organizers, especially Dr. Tan Sun Chen, for putting together a terrific agenda. And what a privilege it is for me to be on the same podium with President Tsai Ing-wen and the great Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and our Senator from Tennessee, Bill Hagerty. They're all good friends and they're all great leaders. They've been joined by many of the leading scholars and political figures in the region, for whom I have great respect. Every day, it seems that global challenges are multiplying, and threats to peace and security, as well as democracy and freedom, values that we hold dear, are increasing. As we speak, threats to Ukraine and Taiwan are in all of the world's headlines. Now more than ever, it is important for us to work together to uphold and secure our birthright of freedom. The theme for this conference's dialogue aptly states, mapping the democratic agenda for the next generation, for our children's future and for our grandchildren's future. Whether you define the Indo-Pacific as the territory from the Pacific to the Indian Ocean, or from California, where I was born and raised and live, all the way to Cape Town, in my wife's native South Africa, the region is made up of the most dynamic democracies, economies, and populations in the world. The key to sustaining our region's continued success is maintaining a free, open, and prosperous environment. We've now added the word prosperous to Prime Minister Abe's formulation of a free and open Indo-Pacific, and I hope he likes the addition. I think it's terrific. What does it mean when discussing the concept of a free, open, and prosperous Indo-Pacific? It's the rule of law. It's freedom of navigation of the seas and airways and highways. It's protecting open commerce and protecting open thinking and freedom of religion. It's guarding the sanctity of each nation's sovereignty. The nations of the Indo-Pacific that respect and promote these principles are all citizen-centric. They're not regime-centric governments, and many of them have even developed their own Indo-Pacific ideas and frameworks. Taiwan and Japan each have their policies. Taipei developed the new southbound policy, and Tokyo, as I mentioned, was the first to coin the term free and open Indo-Pacific. These policies, as with our United States Indo-Pacific strategy, which I declassified earlier this year, were not developed in a vacuum. They were formulated to counter China's growing influence and the increasingly aggressive and coercive behavior of the Chinese Communist Party. In economic, military, and political spheres, the CCP has been relentless. Against this threat, the nations of the Indo-Pacific must stand firm to maintain our sovereignty, freedom, and democratic values, or the next generation of people in our part of the world, and maybe the entire world, will live in a very different and a very darker place. Taiwan has an important role to play in our fight. Taiwan is a worthy contributor to the Indo-Pacific region and to the world. As you know, this year marks the 50th anniversary of UN Resolution 2758, the resolution that changed the occupancy of China's seat from Taipei to Beijing. There's been a great deal of commentary over Resolution 2758, given the anniversary, but I would like to zero in on a few specific points. Number one, 2758 changed the China seat. It did not exclude Taiwan from observing or even participating in UN organizations. But Beijing has extended extraordinary pressure on the UN and its specialized agencies and on other countries to exclude Taiwan from participation in key organizations. Not only is this inconsistent with the letter of the law, the resolution, but it's also dangerous. Taiwan has much to contribute in expertise and experience to these organizations, especially the specialized agencies. Examples are the WMO, ICAO, the FAO, and the WHO, to name a few. Taiwan, for example, did an outstanding job on fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. In the beginning of the outbreak, Taiwan was way ahead of other countries in countering the virus at home, but they were also extraordinary in their help to the world, particularly in exporting PPE around the world. President Tsai and Foreign Minister Wu even made sure that the White House received surgical masks. And when our supplies were low, our NSC Situation Room staff proudly wore masks that bore the emblem "Made in Taiwan." So thank you, Taiwan, for helping even us out at the White House. So for Taiwan to be excluded from international organizations is dangerous. Taiwan deserves a place at the UN, and the world deserves to have Taiwan at the table. This is precisely why I and the Trump administration pushed hard for observer status for Taiwan. It appears that the Biden administration is continuing this policy, and I commend Secretary of State Tony Blinken and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan for pursuing this correct course. In addition to Beijing's pressure and propaganda aimed at the UN, China is also systematically working to coerce or entice 15 nations, now sadly 14 after the recent news from Nicaragua, who have held tightly to their recognition of Taiwan, to switch their diplomatic recognition from Taipei to Beijing. My colleagues and I worked very hard to support the Friends of Taiwan. Again, the current administration appears to be holding its ground on this issue as well. But this is a really tough issue, and it's going to take dedicated effort and the employment of substantial resources to make sure that Taiwan's friends remain on Taipei's side. These concerted efforts to isolate Taiwan are part of Beijing's larger strategy aimed at legitimizing China's ultimate control and domination of all of the Chinese diaspora, reunifying China by military force. Such conduct is unacceptable in the post-World War II era, whether the target is Ukraine, the Baltics, or Taiwan. Washington and Taipei must work quickly to deter a PRC attack on Taiwan. To that end, my colleague Alex Gray and I recently published an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. And we recommended turning a strategy that would turn Taiwan into a porcupine. Porcupines, because of their quills, are unappetizing prey for the large predators and strong predators on the African savanna. And so how do we give Taiwan the right quills to make it unappetizing against the predator of the Communist Party of China? First, the US and its allies should provide Taipei with significant quantities of the Naval Strike Missile, an anti-ship weapon set to deploy on US Navy littoral combat ships in the near future. These missiles can launch from sea or land, and they have a range of about 100 nautical miles. And a substantial number of them would severely threaten any Chinese amphibious force that sets sail to invade Taiwan. Fast and powerful, these missiles could move quickly across the island before and after landfall of a Chinese force to harass the first wave and interrupt reinforcements of PLA troops. Second, Taiwan should acquire quick-strike airdrop sea mines or other advanced sea mine technology from the US. Just knowledge that Taipei could, with US assistance, create a denied access zone in the Taiwan Strait would hamstring any Chinese amphibious force, especially one relying heavily on converted ferries and commercial ships. This would certainly complicate the lives of Chinese planners. Third, Taiwan should equip strategic locations around the island with shoulder-fired Stinger missiles. Taiwan has more than 2,000 police stations. Each one of them could have one of the officers trained to use the Stinger missile and forward deploy those assets. China has dramatically expanded its helicopter fleet, and in recent years have practiced airborne assaults, claiming to be rehearsals for taking Taiwan using that helicopter fleet. Stinger missiles at every police station in Taiwan would blunt Beijing's helicopter fleet advantage and complicate air operations in the island's inland territory. Finally, Taiwan must improve its trained military reserve. There are many ways to do this. For instance, encouraging the establishment of shooting clubs, similar to those now popular in Eastern Europe, such as in Poland and the Baltics. Now, I know gun ownership is a complicated issue in Taiwan, but having an organized, trained, and equipped civilian corps willing to take up arms in the event of Chinese aggression is essential to Taiwan's defense, and again, would pose a significant challenge to PLA and PLA Navy planners. In addition to helping Taiwan with the platforms it requires to defend itself, the United States, Japan, and other nations of the Indo-Pacific and beyond, including in Europe, Africa, and South America, must partner with Taiwan. I am heartened to see small states like Lithuania and Somaliland in the Horn of Africa stand up to Chinese bullying and stand beside their friends in Taiwan. I see that there's an entire session on the agenda today for exploring the potential for additional US, Japan, Taiwan cooperation, and that's great news. I'm sure that session will lead to excellent policy proposals that can be pursued beyond this conference. I've spent a lot of time in Taiwan. It's a wonderful place with wonderful people. Taiwan's evolution to a truly democratic country over the past 30 years is an example to the world and something that we should all be proud of. We simply cannot let Taiwan go the way of Hong Kong. Whether our children and our children's children and the generations that come after them are able to enjoy the same free, open, and prosperous environment in the Indo-Pacific that we do today depends on how we act now to protect that freedom and our values. The nations of the Indo-Pacific must stand firm to maintain our way of life. That is the message that this conference sends to the world. So let us go forth from this conference with a renewed commitment to our task and with optimism in our hearts that we can make a difference and preserve freedom, liberty, and our democratic values in this great region. May God bless you. May God bless the peoples of the Indo-Pacific region, and may God bless America during this holiday season. Thank you very much.